Hello, hello. See, I told you I wasn't gonna be long at all. Today I want to talk about weird things I used to do when I was little. First thing most people don't know is that Spanish was actually my first language. I was born in the US, but then was raised in Lima, Peru until I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and then I came back to the US. I think on top of the fact that I didn't know English, I was just a weird kid. So that made communication pretty hard. Yeah, speaking of being weird in general, and it was not just a language thing, I have a very specific memory of when I was living in Peru. I guess I'm in preschool or daycare, I don't know how old I am, but I'm doing some kind of creative activity in the corner by myself. The teacher got mad at me. She's like, "Annie, you need to go," this is all in Spanish, "you need to go play with the other kids." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So she puts me in the middle of this game and I have no idea what's going on, and all of a sudden there's a circle of chairs and everybody's following each other in a line, so I'm like, fine, let me just follow everybody in the line, and then the music stops and everybody sits down and I sit down and I'm like, okay, and then we continue doing the same thing. They turn the music back on, we all run around in a circle, music stops, everybody sits down, and I sit down again, fine, okay. I'm like, what the hell even is this game? And then we do it again one more time, the music stops, and then everybody sits down, and I'm noticing that everybody keeps taking away the chairs as we go, and I'm like, what the hell even is this game? So finally, the music stops, and I'm the one that's left without a chair, and I don't get it. Nobody ever explained the rules of the game to me. So they turned the music back on and I continued following the circle, and my teacher got really mad at me and the students got really mad at me and they're like, "Annie, you're out." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "You didn't sit down when the music stopped." And I literally threw my hands up in the air and yelled at everyone. I'm like, "Of course I didn't sit down. You keep taking away the chairs." Another weirdo memory I have of when I was little was, I think, first grade or kindergarten. When I moved to the US, I had a really difficult time making friends. Like I said, be it because of my language barrier or just because I was a weird kid in general. And so I made one really good friend. I think she thought that I was weird, but I clung on to that girl like white on rice because I needed a friend. So they were separating us into tables, and I was filled with such anxiety, please let her sit at my table, please let her sit at my table, please let her sit at my table, please let her sit at my table. I was just sitting there begging for her to sit at my table, whispering it, praying, and then finally the teacher goes, "Okay, and she can sit at that table," which is exactly what I wanted. So from that anxiety, I literally burst out of my chair. My chair fell onto the ground. I'm like, yes! And made this big scene. I think I maybe danced a little bit. I don't exactly remember that. And everybody, the students, the teacher, stared at me with their eyes all wide. And the teacher had my friend in her hands and said, I think we're gonna actually sit you over here, away from me. And then she told my mom that I was a weirdo and that I should probably get tested or whatever. My mom got mad at that teacher. She's like, "What's your deal?" When I was little, I would get really anxious about VHS tapes. I would want to watch Aladdin or something in the morning, and I would get really anxious with my mom about playing the tape as soon as possible because I thought that movies would play without you. I also had really weird physical fantasies throughout elementary school. I had this really weird fantasy of kicking the cafeteria door open and doing jazz hands. And I spent 5 years. Every time I would go into the cafeteria, I would look at that door and be like, I want to bust it down, I want to kick it open and then do some jazz hands on the way inside. And I would just think about that every time I went into the cafeteria. So finally in the 5th grade, I said to myself, like, what have I got to lose? I'm out of here. I'm gonna do it. And this is 5 years of build up, and I did it. Not the jazz hands though, because the second I kicked that door open, the security guard's like, "Hey, what the hell's your problem?" And I was like, "Oh, I wasn't angry. I just wanted to do it." Speaking of the cafeteria, I think the final story I have for you from my childhood of me being a weirdo and embarrassing stories would be when I was in the 5th grade and I was in line with my crush to get food in the cafeteria, and something they said I found really funny. Now, when I was little in elementary school and maybe for a little bit of middle school, I had a terrible bladder problem. Like, I would have to wear like pads all the time. I think we eventually worked our way up to diapers. Wow, this is more embarrassing than I thought. I would have like laughing fits and pee myself accidentally. So you can tell where this story's going. So I was laughing in front of it and I couldn't stop laughing. I just couldn't stop. And eventually I fell to the floor and my butt's on the floor. And then I couldn't get off the floor because underneath my butt was a growing puddle of pee. And I thought, you know, if I sit on the floor long enough, maybe nobody will notice. Eventually people did notice because they're like, "Why are you still on the floor though? Why are you on the floor in the first place?" And the puddle grew larger and larger and larger until everyone saw. And to make matters worse, the security guard came over and started yelling at me. I'm like stuck on the floor, I can't get up, like it's so embarrassing. And she starts yelling at me because like how old are you? What kind of a kid pees on the floor? Da, da, da. I'm like, and I'm humiliated enough. I can't even remember the end of that story. I'm so traumatized. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please, I've shared with you, so please share with me. What embarrassing stories do you have from your childhood? Or if they're not even that embarrassing, what kind of things did you think made you super weird when you were a kid? Let me know in the comments. I will see you guys eventually.